Imagine a car that could race just as fast in reverse as it could going forward. Now imagine an entire nation gathering by the roadside, not to travel, but simply to watch vehicles pass by like it was the greatest show on earth. This isn't science fiction. This is the Netherlands, a country that once built the world's first four-wheel drive supercar, revolutionized the automatic transmission, and then mysteriously vanished from the automotive map. What you're about to discover is the rise, fall, and secret survival of a forgotten automotive empire hidden in the land of windmills. Today, if you stand beside a Dutch highway, you'll see an endless parade of familiar names rolling past. Golf, Polo, Passat. Volkswagen dominates the sales charts as if this were the most natural thing in the world for the land of windmills and canals. Yet behind that modern, orderly picture lies a strange paradox. The Netherlands has no true national car brand, no mechanical icon with the stature of Germany's pride, Britain's legends, or Italy's passion. This has led many to assume that the Netherlands never truly belonged to the world of automobiles. But history tells a radically different story. More than a century ago, this small nation stood at the absolute cutting edge of automotive engineering, bold, revolutionary, and decades ahead of its time. Today, we're turning back the clock to uncover why all of that gradually disappeared from the Dutch roads. At the dawn of the 20th century, when the world was still debating whether the automobile was merely a luxurious toy or the inevitable future of humanity, this infant industry resembled a wild frontier. Hundreds of small companies sprang up overnight, each carrying grand ambitions to transform how people moved, only to vanish just as quickly without a trace. In that chaotic landscape, the Netherlands, a tiny country with limited resources and no substantial domestic market, unexpectedly gave birth to a name that would capture the attention of all Europe: Spyker. Before venturing into automobiles, Spyker was already a legendary carriage maker. It was their craftsmen who built the magnificent golden coach for the Dutch royal family, a gleaming symbol of supreme artistry and national pride. When the internal combustion engine began to replace horse-drawn transport, Spyker refused to stand aside and watch history pass them by. In 1900, the company introduced its first automobile, built under license from Benz and powered by a modest two-cylinder engine producing just 2 to 5 horsepower. Humble beginnings, perhaps, but this was merely the first step toward a far greater dream. That dream reached its stunning peak in 1903 when Spyker unveiled the Spyker 60 HP, a machine that could only be described as utterly insane for its era. With a top speed approaching 70 miles per hour, it was fast enough to make many believe it posed a genuine danger not only to its driver, but to society itself. Beneath the hood roared an 8.6-liter six-cylinder engine, making it the first production car in the world to feature such a configuration. But Spyker didn't stop at raw, brutal power. The 60 HP was also the world's first car equipped with both four-wheel drive and four-wheel brakes, technologies that wouldn't become industry standards until many decades later. In 1903, this represented a technological leap far beyond the imagination of most competitors. Yet the history of the automobile industry has always been mercilessly unforgiving to those who arrive too early. Spyker produced fewer than 2,000 cars throughout its initial existence. Poor management decisions, soaring development costs, and a market that simply wasn't ready for such innovation gradually strangled the company's grand ambitions. By the early 1920s, Spyker declared bankruptcy, closing a brief but absolutely brilliant chapter in automotive history. The 1950s then opened an entirely different chapter for the Netherlands. After brutal years of war and devastating occupation, the country slowly awakened with renewed optimism and a burning desire to rebuild the future. Before the war, automobiles in the Netherlands have been exclusive symbols of social status, reserved strictly for doctors, businessmen, and the wealthy elite. But as the economy recovered and a prosperous middle class emerged and expanded, the car gradually transformed into an attainable dream. No longer a distant fantasy, the automobile became a powerful symbol of stability, of family life, and of the deep belief that tomorrow would inevitably be better than today. At the same time, a distinctly unique cultural phenomenon emerged that seems almost surreal today: roadside tourism. On sunny weekends, Dutch families would drive out to the highways not to reach any particular destination. They would park along the roadside, watching endless streams of vehicles pass by, enthusiastically discussing styling details, engine sounds, and the intoxicating sense of freedom that cars represented. In a society once brutally constrained by war and severe scarcity, simply watching automobiles roll by was enough to spark genuine excitement and wonder. May 29th, 1955 marked a truly symbolic moment in Dutch history. The first traffic jam ever recorded in the Netherlands occurred, and remarkably, it wasn't seen as a transportation disaster, but as an extraordinary source of national pride. Newspapers eagerly reported it. People talked about it with excitement, and authorities suddenly realized that the automobile had officially become an inseparable part of modern Dutch society. A country once defined entirely by bicycles and scenic canals was now beginning to learn how to coexist with an ever-growing torrent of cars. As the need for a compact, easy-to-use car perfectly suited to Dutch family life became increasingly urgent, the answer didn't come from Germany or France. It emerged from an industrial workshop steeped in Dutch pragmatism, where two determined brothers, Hub and Wim van Doorn, were quietly pursuing a very different vision. That company was DAF, which stood for Van Doorn's Automobile Fabric. Before producing passenger cars, DAF was already well respected for building trailers, trucks, and buses. They understood one fundamental principle that would define their philosophy: durability, simplicity, and rock-solid efficiency mattered infinitely more than flashy styling or superficial glamour. When DF decided to enter the competitive family car market, they didn't aim to build the most powerful or luxurious vehicle on the road. They wanted to create a car that literally anyone could drive, regardless of experience or skill. In 1958, DF introduced the DAF 600, a small family car powered by a modest two-cylinder air-cooled engine. At first glance, the DAF 600 appeared thoroughly unremarkable. Simple styling, compact dimensions, and just enough power for navigating city streets and quiet rural roads. But what truly captured Europe's fascinated attention was ingeniously hidden deep within the drivetrain. The DF 600 came equipped with a genuinely revolutionary invention: the Variomatic transmission, the direct predecessor of the modern continuously variable transmission, or CVT. Instead of using complex gear sets like traditional automatics, the Variomatic employed two rubber belts and an elegant pulley system to alter the gear ratio continuously and seamlessly. No shifting, no clutch pedal, no learning curve. The car simply adjusted itself automatically to speed and load conditions. In the late 1950s, the very idea of an automatic car was still exclusively associated with expensive luxury models from prestigious brands like Jaguar or Mercedes-Benz. DAF brought that liberating experience to a small, economical, and genuinely affordable car. The Dutch affectionately nicknamed the Variomatic Het Pientier Poekie, which translates to the smart gear lever. For countless families, this was far more than just clever technology. It was pure liberation. Suddenly, anyone could drive, regardless of age, gender, or prior experience. But that very advantage gradually became a dangerous double-edged sword. DAF earned an unfortunate reputation as an old lady's car. Too gentle, too easy to drive, completely lacking any sporting character or excitement. In a Europe increasingly obsessed with masculine power and raw speed, DAF struggled desperately to attract younger, more adventurous buyers. Then something truly strange emerged, almost humorous in nature, yet destined to become absolutely legendary. Thanks to the unique characteristics of the Variomatic transmission, DF cars could drive in reverse at nearly the exact same speed as going forward. From this peculiar capability, reverse racing events were spontaneously born during the 1970s and 1980s. In these wonderfully absurd races, the modest little DFs unexpectedly became the Formula One champions of the reverse driving world, handily beating every other competitor. By the late 1960s, DEF's fundamental limitations were becoming impossible to ignore any longer. While European rivals continuously improved engines, refined styling, and boosted performance, DEF remained stubbornly loyal to its original philosophy: compact, simple, easy to drive. What had once been the company's greatest strength had now become a heavy burden. Sluggish acceleration, an increasingly outdated image, and a chronic lack of exciting new models caused DEF to steadily lose appeal, especially among younger customers hungry for speed and contemporary style. Sales stagnated painfully, development costs continued rising, and the company simply lacked the financial resources to successfully reposition its brand in an automotive industry entering an era of unprecedented and ruthless competition. In the early 1970s, a decisive turning point finally arrived. Volvo acquired DEF's entire passenger car division. For Volvo, it represented a golden opportunity to expand production capacity and gain valuable access to modern manufacturing facilities in the Netherlands. For DEF, it marked the definitive end of the dream of maintaining a truly national passenger car brand. Transitional models such as the Volvo 66 still carried DEF's fundamental engineering DNA, but the proud DEF name on passenger cars gradually disappeared completely by the mid-1970s. At this point, you might be wondering, if DEF had already been acquired by Volvo, why did DEF cars still appear prominently in reverse racing events during the 1970s and 1980s? The answer is beautifully simple. These were never official motorsport events organized or sanctioned by DEF corporate headquarters. They were spontaneous grassroots activities, festive, genuinely humorous, and deeply community-driven in nature, typically taking place at cheerful local fairs, nostalgic classic car days, and beloved community gatherings. As the 20th century drew to a close, just when it seemed that Dutch names had completely vanished from the global automotive world forever, an unexpected and dramatic revival effort suddenly emerged. In 1999, ambitious entrepreneur Martin de Bruyne decided to resurrect the legendary name Spyker from the dusty ashes of history. But Spyker in the 21st century was no longer a pioneering car maker for the everyday masses. It was spectacularly reborn as a handcrafted supercar brand, small-scale, extraordinarily luxurious, and fiercely exclusive. Models such as the stunning Spyker C8 embodied a rare and beautiful fusion of modern supercar performance with classical mechanical artistry. The exterior design deliberately echoed elegant 1950s racing cars, featuring bare-polished aluminum bodywork, visible rivets, and intentionally hand-shaped curves that celebrated craftsmanship. Beneath the hood sat a powerful, naturally aspirated V8 engine supplied by Audi, renowned throughout the industry for its legendary durability and razor-sharp exhaust note. The interior was where Spyker's unique personality shone most brilliantly. Polished metal surfaces, exposed gear mechanisms, and beautifully crafted analog gauges reminiscent of a vintage aircraft cockpit. Not luxurious in the conventional leather and wood sense, but mechanically pure and honest, built specifically for those who truly love machines with soul. But nostalgic passion alone was never going to be enough to sustain a modern automaker in the brutal realities of the 21st century. When entrepreneur Victor Muller took control of Spyker, his towering ambitions far exceeded the company's realistic capabilities and modest scale. In the early 2000s, Muller made an incredibly bold move, acquiring the struggling Saab brand from the massive General Motors empire, hoping to dramatically revive both legendary names simultaneously. Reality, however, proved absolutely ruthless. After spending years under General Motors' heavy control, Saab had tragically lost the fiercely independent engineering identity that once defined its character. When GM finally withdrew support, Saab fell into the uncertain hands of small-scale investors who lacked sufficient capital and industrial scale. Under Victor Muller's leadership, the company desperately lacked adequate cash flow to maintain consistent production, pay workers' wages on time, or develop exciting new models. Assembly lines in Trollhättan repeatedly ground to a halt. The fragile supply chain collapsed entirely. Saab went bankrupt in 2011, dragging the revived Spyker into a prolonged and devastating financial crisis. The beautiful dream of reviving a proud Dutch automotive legacy collapsed once again. This time, not due to any lack of technological innovation or engineering brilliance, but because of wholly insufficient economic foundations and inadequate scale in a fiercely globalized and competitive industry. However, the conspicuous absence of national car brands certainly doesn't mean that the Netherlands has somehow left the automotive world behind entirely. On the contrary, the country has quietly and intelligently changed roles, transforming from leading storyteller to indispensable backstage specialist. The factory in Born, once the immense pride of DEF, now operates efficiently under the name VDL Nedcar. Here, premium vehicles bearing the prestigious BMW and Mini badges are carefully assembled according to some of the strictest quality standards in all of Europe. In Tilburg, a thoroughly modern and globally recognizable name appeared, Tesla. Tesla's important assembly facility there once played a significant role in completing the Model S and Model X specifically for the demanding European market. Not complete full-scale manufacturing from raw materials, perhaps, but certainly enough to demonstrate conclusively that the Netherlands remains a reliable and valued link in the intricate global automotive supply chain. Alongside this industrial activity, the Netherlands continues to quietly support small, highly specialized, and fiercely individual manufacturers. Donkervoort, with its ultra-lightweight sports cars focused purely on delivering raw driving feel, proves convincingly that the authentic spirit of independent engineering has never truly disappeared. Specialty brands like Vencer and other boutique vehicle builders continue to exist successfully on the fringes of the industry, in those precious spaces where genuine passion matters infinitely more than massive production volume. The reality of the Dutch automotive industry, therefore, takes on an unusual and fascinating shape. No Detroit, no homegrown Volkswagen empire, but instead a rich history filled with fearless pioneers, revolutionary ideas far ahead of their time, and a quiet yet absolutely enduring role in the modern automotive world. The Netherlands may no longer command center stage in the global spotlight, but it has never once left the backstage. And sometimes, it is precisely there, behind the scenes, that the most important gears of history continue to turn steadily in purposeful silence. If you can feel the pulse of history beating through steel gears and mechanical passion, if names like Spyker or DEF bring back powerful memories of time defined by pure daring mechanics and engineering courage, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share this video with fellow enthusiasts. It genuinely helps keep the forgotten stories of the automotive world alive and accessible. And if you actually lived through that remarkable era, or simply love machines with genuine soul and character, please leave a comment below. Your personal memories and experiences are truly the most important part of preserving this history. See you again soon.